Maya thought decorating her yard for Christmas would bring her community together until Kieran declared war, claiming those twinkling lights were stealing joy from the neighborhood. But when Karen returned with 3 squad cars and a court order, Maya discovered her neighbor's definition of backup ran deeper than anyone imagined. What started as a holiday dispute was about to expose a conspiracy that would shatter their First, snowflake hit Maya Chen's kitchen window just as she pulled the last batch of sugar cookies from the oven. December 1st, her favorite day of the year. She'd been planning this moment for months, sketching diagrams, calculating electrical loads, and ordering supplies. This Christmas would be different. This Christmas would heal what had been broken. Maya wiped flour from her hands and gazed across Maple Street through the frost-kissed glass. The neighborhood looked tired. Half the houses wore peeling paint like old scars, and several front yards hosted more weeds than grass. The Hendersons had moved out in September, leaving their colonial dark and empty. The Patel's house still bore water stains from last spring's roof leak. But Maya saw potential where others saw decay. She pulled on her winter coat and headed to the garage, where boxers labeled Christmas magic waited in neat stacks. Her husband David had left for his business trip that morning with a kiss and a gentle warning, "Just don't overdo it, okay? We don't need the whole neighborhood talking." Maya smiled, hefting the first box. The whole neighborhood talking was exactly what she wanted. The LED string lights came first, thousands of them, each bulb tested and sorted by color. Maya had invested her entire art commission bonus into this project. Warm white lights traced the roofline with mathematical precision. Blue and silver cascaded down the oak tree's bare branches like frozen waterfalls. She wrapped the porch columns in spirals of gold, then stepped back to survey her progress. "It's a start," she murmured, already envisioning the projectors that would cast snowflakes across the brick facade, the synchronized music system, the life-size nativity scene she'd sculpted herself. Maya was securing an extension cord when she noticed the woman watching from across the street. Karen Brightwater stood rigid on her pristine lawn, arms crossed, her gray hair pulled into its usual severe bun. Even from 50 feet away, Maya could feel the disapproval radiating like heat from asphalt. Maya waved. Karen turned sharply and marched toward her own front door. Give it time, Maya told herself. She'd moved to Maple Street 3 years ago, and Karen had never warmed to her. The woman seemed to view Maya's every improvement, the vegetable garden, the painted mailbox, the wind chimes as personal affronts to neighborhood order. But Christmas had a way of softening even the hardest hearts. Maya worked until sunset, then plugged in the first phase of lights. The display burst to life, washing her house in warm radiance that pushed back the December darkness. She stood in her driveway, breath misting in the cold air, and felt something she hadn't experienced since her mother's death 2 years ago. Footsteps crunched across frozen grass behind her. "Excuse me." Maya turned to find Karen approaching, her face sharp with indignation. She wore a navy peacoat buttoned to her throat and clutched a manila folder against her chest like armor. "Karen, isn't it beautiful?" Maya gestured toward the house. "I'm just getting started. Tomorrow I'll add the 'we need to talk.'" Karen's voice cut through the air like winter wind. Now, something in her neighbor's tone made Maya's stomach tighten. "Of course. Would you like to come inside? I just made cookies. This is fine." Karen opened her folder and extracted a sheet of paper. "I've been documenting this situation for the past 4 hours. Situation." Karen thrust the paper forward. Maya recognized her own house in the photograph, but something was wrong. The image was stark, overexposed, making her cheerful lights look garish and aggressive. The timestamp read for 47 p.m., barely 15 minutes after Maya had first plugged them in. "I don't understand," Maya said. "Light pollution." Karen's words came rapid fire. "Practiced 18,000 lumens per square meter of property frontage. That's 3 times the municipal guidelines for residential areas. There are guidelines for Christmas lights. Section 847.3 of the City Code addresses excessive illumination that creates nuisance conditions for neighboring properties." Karen flipped to another page. Electromagnetic interference from improperly shielded LED arrays, increased traffic hazards from driver distraction, and most importantly, she fixed Maya with cold eyes. The deliberate disruption of neighborhood character and property values. The accusations hit Maya like physical blows. "Karen, they're just Christmas lights." I wanted to bring some happiness to the street, make things more festive. Happiness. Karen's laugh was sharp. You think commandeering the entire visual landscape for your personal display brings happiness? You think forcing every family on this street to live in the shadow of your ego brings joy? That's not what I'm doing, isn't it? Karen stepped closer, her voice dropping to a whisper. You move here with your perfect house and your perfect yard and your perfect little art projects, acting like our neighborhood wasn't good enough before you arrived. Now you want to turn Christmas into your personal stage show. Maya felt heat rise in her cheeks. You're being ridiculous. It's a holiday display. People put up Christmas lights every year. Not like this, Karen gestured toward the house. This isn't celebration, it's domination. You're stealing joy from every family on this street by making their own traditions look shabby in comparison. You're forcing their children to ask why their houses aren't as pretty as yours. You're making the rest of us feel inadequate. The words hung in the frozen air between them. Maya stared at her neighbor, seeing something she'd never noticed before them. Deep lines around Karen's eyes, the slight tremor in her hands, the way she held herself like someone braced for impact. Karen, Maya said gently, if I've somehow upset you, that wasn't my intention. We're neighbors. I want us all to enjoy the holidays together, then take them down. What? Take down the lights. Tonight. All of them. Karen's voice grew harder. Return to acceptable neighborhood standards, or I'll be forced to take action. Maya felt something shift inside her chest, a door closing, a line being drawn. I'm not taking down my Christmas decorations. Karen's eyes flashed. Then you've made your choice. She turned and walked back across the street, her heels clicking against the pavement like a countdown timer. At her front door, she paused and looked back. I tried to handle this neighborly, she called out. What happens next is on you. Maya stood alone in her driveway, the cheerful light suddenly feeling less warm. Around the neighborhood, curtains twitched in darkened windows. She realized that half of Maple Street had been watching their confrontation. Let them watch, she thought defiantly. But as she headed inside, Maya couldn't shake the feeling that she'd just stepped into something much larger than a dispute over Christmas lights. Her phone buzzed with a text from David. How's the decorating going? Send pictures. Maya looked back at her house, still glowing against the December night, then at Karen's dark windows across the street. She typed back, still working on it, call you later. Some pictures, she decided, could wait. Maya spent the evening researching city codes, reading every section Karen had referenced. The woman wasn't wrong technically, but the regulations were vague, enforcement discretionary, and violations typically resolved through neighborly compromise, which, apparently, wasn't going to happen. Maya was reviewing electrical safety guidelines when her doorbell rang at 9:30 p.m. She peered through the peephole and saw 3 figures on her porch. Karen, flanked by 2 people Maya didn't recognize. She opened the door, leaving the chain latch engaged. Maya Chen. The man on Karen's left was tall and thin, wearing an expensive overcoat. His smile was practiced, professional. I'm Richard Brightwater, Karen's husband. This is Janet Morrison from the Homeowners Association. Maya's heart sank. She'd moved to Maple Street specifically to avoid HOA restrictions, but apparently there was an informal association she'd never been told about. We hoped to speak with you about the lighting situation, Richard continued. Perhaps we could come in. It's late, Maya said. Can we discuss this tomorrow? Actually, Janet interjected, we'd prefer to resolve this tonight, before it becomes a bigger issue. Something in the woman's tone made Maya's skin crawl. She looked past them to Karen, who stood silent and rigid, still clutching her manila folder. What kind of bigger issue? Richard's smile widened. Maya, we're reasonable people. We understand you want to celebrate the holidays, but your display has already generated several complaints. From who? That's confidential, Janet said quickly. The point is, we're offering you a chance to modify your decorations voluntarily, scale them back to something more appropriate for our community standards, and if I don't, Karen finally spoke, then we'll file formal complaints with the city, the utility company, and the county planning board. We'll request noise ordinance evaluations, fire safety inspections, and electromagnetic interference testing. Her voice grew stronger with each word. We'll make sure every relevant authority knows that Maple Street has a resident who... Maya woke to the sound of power tools at 6:47 a.m. She stumbled to her bedroom window. Across the street, two men in orange safety vests were installing something on Karen's front lawn, a metal post within a sin. Even from her second-floor window, Maya could make out bold red lettering. Her doorbell rang before she could get dressed. Maya threw on a robe and hurried downstairs, finding a uniformed city worker on her porch. He was young, maybe mid-20s, with an apologetic expression and a clipboard full of forms. "Mrs. Chen, I'm sorry to bother you so early. I'm Derek, from Code Enforcement. I have a complaint about excessive lighting on your property." Maya's stomach dropped. "Already? I just put them up yesterday." Derek shifted uncomfortably. "Yeah, about that. I've got 3 separate complaints filed between 9 p.m. and midnight last night. That's unusual for a holiday display." Maya followed him outside, acutely aware of her neighbor's curtains, twitching in windows up and down the street. The morning air was bitter, and frost clung to every surface. Her Christmas lights looked cheerful, but somehow smaller in the daylight, hardly the aggressive display Kieran had described. "Can I ask who filed the complaints?" Maya asked. Derek consulted his clipboard. "Property owners at 847, 851, and 853 Maple Street, plus 1 anonymous report through our online portal." Maya counted the addresses: Karen's house, the empty Henderson place. "The Henderson house is vacant," she said, "and the Patels are out of town." Derek's pen stopped moving. "Are you sure about that?" "Positive." Maya pointed to the dark windows of both houses. "Neither family is here." The young man's face clouded. I'll need to verify that." He made a note on his form, "but I still have to document the complaint." "Can you tell me about your electrical setup?" Maya explained her lighting system, while Derek took measurements and photos. Everything was properly installed, well within safety codes, and drawing less power than her air conditioning unit. He seemed genuinely puzzled by the complaints. "Look, Mrs. Chen," he said finally, "between you and me, your display is nice. I've seen way more aggressive setups that never generated a single complaint. But when we get multiple reports, we have to investigate what happens now. I'll file my assessment. Escalate to the Planning Commission." Maya followed his gaze to Karen's house. The sign on the lawn was clearly visible now: "Concerned Citizens for Neighborhood Preservation," in bold letters, with a phone number and website listed below. "When did that go up?" she asked. Derek checked his watch. "About 20 minutes ago. I saw them installing it when I arrived." A chill ran down Maya's spine that had nothing to do with the December air. Karen had organized a formal opposition group overnight, complete with professional signage and a web presence. This wasn't spontaneous neighborhood concern. This was a coordinated campaign. "Derek," Maya said carefully, "how often do you see this kind of organized response to Christmas lights?" The young man shrugged. "In 12 years of code enforcement, never." After Derek left, Maya researched the Concerned Citizens for Neighborhood Preservation website. It was professionally designed, launched at 11:47 p.m. the previous night, and already featured a photo gallery of her house labeled "Excessive Holiday Displays Threaten Community Standards." The site claimed to represent concerned residents fighting to preserve the quiet, family-friendly character of established neighborhoods. But when Maya clicked through the membership page, she found only 3 listed officers: Karen Brightwater, President; Richard Brightwater, Treasurer; and Janet Morrison, Secretary. Maya's phone buzzed with a text from her next-door neighbor. "Mrs. Rodriguez, can we talk? Something strange happening." Maya found the elderly woman waiting by their shared fence. Today, she seemed genuinely unsettled. "Maya, dear, I got a very odd phone call this morning," she began. "A woman claiming to represent our neighborhood association, asking about my feelings regarding excessive holiday displays and whether I'd be willing to sign a petition." "What did you tell her?" "I told her I thought your lights were lovely and that we don't have a neighborhood association." Mrs. Rodriguez frowned, but she insisted we did and that I should have received information about it. She became quite pushy when I disagreed. Maya felt the pieces clicking together. "Did she give you a name?" "Janet Morrison. She said she was working with the Brightwaters to address community concerns." Mrs. Rodriguez glanced toward Karen's house. "Maya, I've known Karen since she moved here 15 years ago. She's always been particular about appearances, but this feels different. More ... organized. How so?" The woman on the phone knew things about our street that no casual observer would know. Property values, recent sales, even details about the Henderson family's financial troubles before they moved. She mentioned that certain types of residents were changing the neighborhood character, and that property owners needed to band together to protect their investments. Maya's blood ran cold. Certain types of residents, she didn't say it directly, but the implication was clear. Mrs. Rodriguez's weathered face hardened. I've seen this before, dear. In the 60s, when families like mine first moved to suburban neighborhoods, the language changes, but the intent remains the same. Before Maya could respond, a car pulled into her driveway. David climbed out, looking tired and confused. I thought you weren't coming back until Friday, Maya said, hugging him tightly. I caught an earlier flight, got your voicemail about neighborhood drama, and decided to come home. He gestured toward Karen's house. What's with the political sin? Maya filled him in while they walked inside. David's expression grew darker with each detail. Organized, systematic harassment designed to make you take down decorations that are completely legal and reasonable. David was quiet for a moment, then pulled out his laptop. Let me research something. He spent the next hour digging through property records, city planning documents, and real estate listings. What he found made Maya's stomach turn. Karen and Richard Brightwater have been buying properties on this street for the past 3 years, David explained, showing her a spreadsheet he'd created. They owned the Henderson house, bought it through an LLC last month. They also own the rental property at 839 Maple and have made offers on 2 other houses that are in foreclosure. Maya stared at the data. They're buying up the neighborhood. It looks like it. And here's the interesting part. They're doing it through a property management company called Brightwater Holdings. David pulled up another screen. The company specializes in neighborhood revitalization and community standards enforcement, meaning they buy properties in transitional neighborhoods, implement strict community standards, and then sell at a profit once the area is stabilized. David's voice was grim. Your Christmas lights aren't the problem, Maya. You are. What do you mean? You represent everything they're trying to eliminate. Diversity, creativity, individual expression, anything that doesn't fit their vision of a controlled, homogeneous community. Lights. The lights just gave them an excuse to start the process. They're building a case that you're a disruptive resident who doesn't respect community standards. Once they establish that pattern, they can use it to justify more aggressive measures. Like what? David's expression was grim, like making life so difficult that you decide to sell and move somewhere else. Maya sank into a chair, overwhelmed. What do we do? Before David could answer, their doorbell rang. Through the peephole, Maya saw 2 police officers on her porch. Mrs. Chen, the older officer, was tall and professional, with kind eyes. I'm Officer Williams. This is Officer Park. We've received a complaint about a potential noise ordinance violation. Maya's heart pounded. The complaint mentions music and sound effects associated with your holiday display, Officer Park said, consulting his notes. We're required to investigate all noise complaints. But I don't have any music or sound effects, Maya protested. Just lights. The officers exchanged glances, just to document what we see. Maya led them outside, where they spent 10 minutes examining her completely silent light display. Officer Williams took notes, while Officer Park tested a sound meter app on his phone. Mrs. Chen, Officer Williams, said finally, I'm not registering any noise above ambient levels. Your display appears to be just decorative lighting. So what happens now? I'll file a report stating that no noise ordinance. Maya spent the next morning at the county courthouse, her breath visible in puffs as she climbed the stone steps. David had given her a list of documents to request, and she dressed like she was going to war, her best blazer, her grandmother's pearl earrings, and the confident smile she'd perfected during her corporate days. The clerk in the property records office was a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and efficient hands. Brightwater Holdings, she mused, typing the name into her computer. That's the 3rd request for their records this week. Maya's pulse quickened. Someone else has been researching them. Can't say who, but yes, public records. So it's not unusual. The clerk printed out a thick stack of documents, though I will say this company has been very active lately. Lots of property transactions, zoning requests, code enforcement complaints. Maya spread the documents across a reading table, and what she found made her hands shake. Brightwater Holdings didn't just own properties on Maple Street, they controlled real estate across 6 different neighborhoods, all following the same pattern. Buy low in transitional areas, implement strict community standards through manufactured conflicts. Then sell high once the neighborhood was stabilized. But the most disturbing discovery was a folder labeled Problem Residents. Maya's own name was listed, along with detailed notes about her decorating habits, her art career, and even her grocery shopping patterns. Someone had been watching her for months. The file contained photos of her house, her garden, her mailbox, annotated with complaints about non-conforming aesthetic choices and failure to maintain traditional property standards. There were similar files for other residents. Mrs. Rodriguez's excessive garden decoration, non-English signage, the Johnsons' unapproved vehicle modifications, and 3 other families Maya barely knew. At the bottom of the stack, she found The Smoking Gun, a planning document titled Maple Street Revitalization Project, Phase 3. It outlined a systematic plan to remove problematic residents through code enforcement, noise complaints, and what they called community pressure campaigns. Maya photographed every page with her phone, her anger growing with each click. This wasn't just about property values. It was about erasing anyone who didn't fit Karen's vision of suburban perfection. She was leaving the courthouse when her phone rang. Mrs. Rodriguez sounded panicked. Maya found Maple Street in chaos. A city truck was parked in front of her house, and 2 workers were examining her electrical connections. Karen stood on the sidewalk with clipboard in hand, directing their attention to various aspects of Maya's display. "What's happening?" Maya demanded. "Electrical safety inspection. Got a complaint about overloaded circuits and fire hazards." Maya's temper flared. "My system was professionally installed and permitted. I have all the documentation." "That's what we're checking," the man said patiently. "But ma'am, someone called in a report about burning smells and flickering lights. We have to investigate." Maya glanced at Karen, who was pretending to examine her own mailbox while obviously listening to every word. "Who called it in?" "Anonymous tip through the fire department's safety hotline." Of course it was. Maya retrieved her electrical permits and inspection certificates from the house. Every document was in order, every connection properly rated, every circuit safely below capacity. The workers confirmed what Maya already knew: her installation was textbook perfect. Whoever called this in was either mistaken or ... The gray-bearded worker paused diplomatically. "Well, let's just say we see a lot of false reports this time of year. Holiday decoration disputes getting out of hand." As the truck pulled away, Maya noticed several neighbors watching from their windows. Mrs. Rodriguez approached, shaking her head. "This is harassment, plain and simple," the older woman said. "I've lived here 30 years, and I've never seen anything like it." Maya was about to respond when she noticed a small crowd gathering near the Concerned Citizens sign. Karen was holding what appeared to be an impromptu press conference, speaking to 2 people with cameras and notebooks. "Community standards exist for a reason," Karen was saying, her voice carrying across the street. "When one resident decides their personal expression is more important than neighborhood harmony, it affects everyone." Maya walked closer, close, enough to hear clearly. "The excessive lighting display is just the visible symptom," Karen continued. "The real issue is a pattern of behavior that shows disregard for community values. Property modifications without neighbor consultation, non-traditional landscaping choices, and now this aggressive holiday display that forces everyone else to feel inadequate about their own decorations." One of the reporters, a young woman with a local news badge, raised her hand. "Mrs. Brightwater, some residents we've spoken to say they actually enjoy the holiday display. How do you respond to that?" Karen's smile was practiced and cold. "I think you'll find that many neighbors are afraid to speak honestly about their concerns. There's a culture of intimidation when someone questions these choices. People worry about being labeled intolerant or unwelcoming." Maya felt heat rising in her cheeks. The reporter was scribbling notes, apparently taking Karen's accusations seriously. "What about the electrical inspections that found no safety violations?" the reporter asked. "Safety isn't the only concern," Karen replied smoothly. "There are issues of light pollution, increased traffic, property value impacts, and the psychological effect on families who can't compete with such elaborate displays." We've had parents tell us their children are asking why their houses aren't as pretty, making them feel like failures. Maya had heard enough. She walked directly toward the group, her courthouse documents in hand. "Excuse me," she said loudly enough for everyone to hear. "I'm Maya Chen, the homeowner you're discussing. I'd like to respond to these accusations." The reporter's eyes lit up. "Mrs. Chen, would you like to comment on the neighborhood concerns about your holiday display?" "I'd like to comment on what I discovered at the courthouse today," Maya said, pulling out her phone and displaying one of the photos she'd taken. "These are property records showing that Mrs. Brightwater and her husband own at least 4 houses. On this street, through shell companies, they've been systematically buying properties and using manufactured disputes to drive out residents they consider problematic." Karen's face went pale. "That's a completely false, is it?" Maya showed another photo. This is from a planning document titled Maple Street Revitalization Project. It specifically lists me and 5 other families as targets for removal through community pressure campaigns. "My Christmas lights aren't the problem I am because I don't fit their vision of suburban conformity." The reporter was writing furiously. "Mrs. Brightwater, can you comment on these allegations?" Karen's composure cracked. "This is exactly the kind of behavior we're talking about. Wild accusations, conspiracy theories, attempts to deflect from legitimate community concerns, then you deny owning multiple properties on this street," Maya pressed. "There's nothing illegal about real estate investment, no, but there's something illegal about filing false complaints to harass your neighbors," Maya replied, "like claiming the Henderson house filed a noise complaint when the property has been vacant for 3 months, or reporting electrical violations from addresses you own through LLCs." The second reporter, an older man with a tape recorder, looked up sharply. "Mrs. Brightwater, did you file complaints from properties you own?" Karen's face flushed red. "I think this interview is over." She turned and walked rapidly toward her house, leaving Maya face to face with 2 very interested journalists. Maya spent the next hour giving them a detailed account of the harassment campaign, providing documentation for every claim. She showed them the fake complaints, the property records, the planning documents, and the timeline of escalating incidents. "This is bigger than Christmas lights," Maya concluded. "This is about corporate interests, using community fear to eliminate diversity and drive up property values. Mrs. Brightwater isn't a concerned neighbor, she's a property developer using harassment tactics to clear out residents who don't fit her business model." After the reporters left, Maya found herself surrounded by neighbors she barely knew. Mrs. Rodriguez stood beside her. Along with the Johnsons from down the street, the Martinez family from the corner house, and several others. "We heard everything," said Tom Johnson, a retired teacher with tired eyes. "Karen's been after us too. Anonymous complaints about our son's motorcycle, noise reports when we have family barbecues, code enforcement visits about our fence height." "Same here," added Maria Martinez. "Complaints about our garden decorations, reports about our dogs barking, which is impossible because we don't have dogs." Maya realized she wasn't the only target, she was just the most visible one. "What do we do?" asked a young mother Maya didn't recognize. "I can't afford legal battles, but I can't afford to move either." Maya looked around at the faces of her neighbors, people she'd barely spoken to in 3 years, united now by a common threat. "We document everything, we support each other, and we make sure everyone knows." Maya woke at 3:17 a.m. to the sound of her security alarm. The system David had insisted on installing 2 days earlier was shrieking through the house, red lights flashing in every room. She grabbed her phone and checked the camera feed. A figure in dark clothing was moving through her backyard, doing something near her electrical panel. David, by the time the police arrived, the intruder was gone. But the damage was clear. Someone had attempted to cut the main power line to Maya's Christmas display. The cable was partially severed, sparking dangerously in the December frost. Officer Williams arrived with the first patrol car, his expression grim when he recognized the address. "Mrs. Chen, we're going to need those security recordings." Maya pulled up the footage on her phone. The figure was too shadowy to identify clearly, but the timestamp was damning 3:11 a.m., less than 7 hours after Karen's threatening phone. "Call this is escalating fast," Officer Williams said, examining the damaged cable. "What can you do? We'll dust for prints, canvass the neighborhood, analyze the video." "But Mrs. Chen," his voice was serious, You and your husband need to be very careful. This person knew exactly where your electrical connections were. That suggests surveillance, planning. Maya felt a chill, deeper than the December cold. Someone had been watching her house closely enough to map her electrical system. By 8 a.m., Maya's front yard was a circus of news. Vans, police tape, and curious neighbors. She emerged from her house at 8:15 a.m., fully dressed and made up, despite the early hour, carrying a thermos of coffee and wearing an expression of concerned sympathy. She approached the nearest reporter with the practiced ease of someone who'd been preparing for this moment. "This is exactly what we've been worried about," Karen told the Channel 7 reporter, her voice carrying just the right note of sadness. "When neighborhood tensions escalate like this, everyone suffers. I hope Maya realizes that her provocative display has created an atmosphere of conflict that benefits no one." Maya, watching from her porch, felt her blood boil. Karen was actually blaming her for the sabotage, but Mrs. Rodriguez had been watching too. The elderly woman stepped forward, her voice cutting through the morning air like a blade. "Excuse me," she called to the reporter. "I think you should know that I was awake at 3 a.m. insomnia. You know, and I saw someone leaving the Brightwater house around the time this happened." Karen's face went white. "That's impossible. Richard and I were asleep. I'm quite sure of what I saw," Mrs. Rodriguez continued calmly. A person in dark clothing, moving quickly from the direction of 847 Maple toward the Chen house, then back again 20 minutes later. The reporter's pen was moving rapidly. "Mrs. Brightwater, do you have any comment on that allegation?" "It's a ridiculous accusation from a confused elderly woman," Karen snapped, her composure finally cracking. "Mrs. Rodriguez has been having vision problems." "My vision is fine. Thank you," Mrs. Rodriguez replied icily. "And so is my memory. I can describe exactly what I saw, including the black jacket and baseball cap." Maya pulled out her phone and scrolled through the security footage. In the corner of one frame, barely visible, was exactly what Mrs. Rodriguez had described, someone in a black jacket and cap. The reporter was now very interested. Maya played the relevant clips on her phone. While the saboteur's face wasn't clear, the clothing matched Mrs. Rodriguez's description perfectly, and the timestamp showed the figure returning toward the... "This is harassment," she shouted. "You're all conspiring to frame me for something I didn't do." "No one's framing you," Maya said quietly. "We're just sharing what we observed." "I know what this is really about," Karen continued, her voice rising. "You can't stand that someone is finally standing up to your disruptive behavior, so you're making me the villain. Well, I won't be intimidated by false accusations and media manipulation." She turned and stormed back toward her house, but not before the cameras caught her unhinged rant. Maya realized that Karen had just destroyed her own credibility in front of the entire city. The story dominated local news all day. By evening, Maya had received calls from 3 different law firms offering to represent her pro bono to property rights advocacy groups, and a documentary filmmaker interested in exploring corporate manipulation of residential communities. But the most important call came from Detective Sarah Chano relation. Despite the shared surname from the county prosecutor's office, "Mrs. Chen, I've been reviewing your case, and I think we need to talk. Can you come in tomorrow morning?" Maya arrived at the prosecutor's office to find Detective Chen surrounded by boxes of documents. The detective was a sharp-eyed woman in her 40s with the focused intensity of someone who'd spent years unraveling complex financial crimes. "Your situation caught my attention because it fits a pattern we've been tracking," Detective Chen began. "Brightwater Holdings isn't just operating in your neighborhood. They're running similar operations in 12 different communities across 3 counties. Each location follows the same model: buy properties through shell companies, manufacture community conflicts to target specific residents, then profit from the resulting property turnover." Maya studied the map. "How is this legal?" "Most of it isn't, technically, but it's sophisticated enough that proving criminal intent is difficult." Detective Chen pulled out a thick folder. "However, your case might be the breakthrough we need. The sabotage incident, combined with the documented harassment campaign and the property records you uncovered, gives us enough evidence to pursue serious charges." "What kind of charges?" "Conspiracy, fraud, harassment, vandalism, and possibly racketeering if we can prove this is an ongoing criminal enterprise." The detective's smile was sharp. Mrs. Chen, you might have just handed us the key to shutting down a multi-million-dollar operation. Maya felt a surge of hope mixed with fear. What happens now? Now we build a case. I'll need detailed statements from you and your neighbors, copies of all documentation, and access to your security footage. But Mrs. Chen, Detective Chen's expression grew serious. Once we move forward with this, the Brightwaters will know they're under investigation. They might escalate their tactics. They already threaten me. How much worse can it get? Detective Chen was quiet for a moment. These people have millions of dollars at stake and a business model that depends on forcing families from their homes. When that kind of money is threatened, over their own lights and decorations, creating a unified display that stretched across 4 houses. Community solidarity, explained Tom Johnson, who was stringing lights along his fence. If they want to attack one of us, they'll have to deal with all of us. Maya dear, I've been making some calls to old friends in city government. It seems the Brightwaters have been very busy zoning variance requests, code enforcement complaints, property tax appeals, always targeting the same types of families. What types? Minorities, single mothers, elderly residents on fixed incomes, young families with limited resources. Anyone who might be vulnerable to pressure or unable to fight back legally. Mrs. Rodriguez's eyes were hard. It's systematic discrimination disguised as community improvement. That evening, Maya's doorbell rang. She checked the security monitor and saw 3 people she didn't recognize, 2 men and a woman, all wearing expensive coats and serious expressions. Mrs. Chen, we're attorneys representing Brightwater Holdings. We'd like to discuss a resolution to this situation. Maya kept the chain latch engaged. I have legal representation. You can contact them. Actually, we're here with a very generous offer, the woman said smoothly. Our clients are prepared to pay significantly above market value for your property, enough to buy a much nicer home in a more suitable neighborhood. More suitable, a neighborhood where your creative expressions would be better appreciated, one of the men said, somewhere with fewer restrictions, more artistic freedom. Maya felt her temper rise. You mean somewhere with fewer white people to offend? The attorneys exchanged glances. You're offering to pay me to disappear because I don't fit your client's vision of suburban perfection? To destroy? She closed the door, but not before she heard the woman attorney say, Mrs. Chen, you're making a very expensive mistake. Maya leaned against the door, heart pounding. Through her,